All right, welcome everyone to another New Jersey Folk Festival virtual performance for our 2020 virtual festival. We have some friends here. I'm happy to introduce our longtime New Jersey Folk Festival performer, Spook Handy. And we've got Spook, and we've also got our board member, Michael Gabriele. Say hi, Michael. And we've got our associate director, Matt Houston, who's been with the festival for more than 10 years now. So this is a collection of the, long timers at the festival, myself excluded. So I'm just real happy to have you guys here. We were thinking that this would be a great opportunity to talk about the history of the folk music scene in New Jersey. And Michael Gabriele, you've written a book about this. And Spook, you are an expert also, performer. There's the book, thanks. Can you hold that up again, Michael Gabriele? New Jersey Folk Revival Music. You've been doing a lot of talks on tour at various libraries, that's correct, right, Michael?
I was until about February. And then all of a sudden things stopped. I don't understand it.
I know. Well, let me just hand it over to you guys. I think you had some things you wanted to chat about the history of folk music in New Jersey. So where's a good place to start?
Well, I'd like to start by asking Spook about his subtitle as a torch carrier. I picked up on that theme when I interviewed him in my book, and there he is, alive and well and smiling, about 4 years ago. And he was introduced on the Skyland stage, and I remember the person doing the introduction described him as a torchbearer, and I said, that's an interesting thing. And I thought about that, and I thought about folk music being a music that's handed down generation to generation. There's a stewardship involved, and I thought I would pursue that line of thought with Spook. So let me put the question to you. Torchbearer, what does that mean? What's the torch, and for whom are you bearing it?
Well, okay. So first of all, that's a very generous honor to be considered one of the torchbearers. I would, before I explain what the torch actually is, I would say, the torch is very big, and it takes a lot of hands to hold it, and there is plenty of room for hundreds, if not thousands, or tens of thousands of people to put your hands firmly up on this torch and carry it forward. And the torch there's a couple of ways of looking at it. First, the torch is the tradition of using music as a tool to build and to nurture community. Now, as you know, I had 10 years that I spent performing alongside Pete Seeger. I wasn't, the only guy who played with him, but I played with him over 50 times at concerts and festivals. And I learned a lot about this torch and the tradition of using songs as a tool is not just to build community. It actually goes all the way to this concept of, think about the torch that Lady Liberty is holding in the harbor. And we need to put our hands firmly around that torch too, and hold that, as many people as we can possibly get. And there's a strong, very, very strong connection between folk music and that concept of strong community, liberty, justice, love of our neighbors and all that stuff. And the music, the right kind of folk music, it doesn't have to even be folk music, but the right kind of music in the right place at the right time is nurturing the seed of that concept. So I am, to be called a torchbearer, that's a great honor, and it's a great responsibility too. So the other half of your question was, what am I think it was something to the effect of, what am I doing to be a torchbearer? There's a real big responsibility. You can't just go and make up stories. I sometimes sing Amazing Grace, and I change the words to, instead of that saved a wretch like me, I sing that touched a soul like me. But I have to be very, very careful, because there is a really important historical value to singing that concept that's saved a wretch. There's also a value to this concept that We're not wretches. We're all souls, you know. So learn the history. You never stop learning it. Listen to other folks, listen to other perspectives, and build on it.
You mentioned Pete Seeger, and
Yes.
for many in this music genre, he's the great father to many people. Has inspired many people. In talking to people when I was doing my book and interviewing people, interviewing musicians, but also interviewing people behind the scenes, very often they would say words to the effect that, well, one day I was walking down the street and I happened to go into a music store and I heard somebody playing the banjo. And they said, I never heard anything like that before. The sound stopped them in their tracks, and they said it changed their lives. Roger Dietz, the great New Jersey musician, said that folk music catalyzes people. It starts something inside of them, and once it's got you, it doesn't let go. Now, you heard Pete Seeger's music, but I'm thinking maybe you also heard his message. Maybe that was a catalyst for you as well.
Well, that's true, Michael, because you know, I grew up in a very conservative, protective household, and we had 2 albums when I was a kid. One was Peter, Paul, and Mary in concert, and one was the Beatles' Hard Day's Night. So I had exposure to the American folk music scene and to the British invasion rock and roll scene, but not a lot of it, just those 2 albums. That was it. So hearing that sound was not any kind of big shock to me. I kind of grew up with that naturally. But when I met Pete in 2003, the thing that struck me as if I was hit by a bolt of lightning is that the substance, the spirit, the soul behind this music. I learned If I Had a Hammer when I was in kindergarten. And I thought that was a children's song. In a certain sense it is. But it wasn't until 2005, 2 years after I met Pete Seeger, I was playing with him on stage with Peter Yarrow from Peter, Paul, and Mary. And we ended a peace concert. We were at the Riverside Church where Martin Luther King gave his famous speech on April 4, 1967. And we had 1,100 people in the audience, and we're ending the concert with If I Had a Hammer. And there I was standing on the altar of the church when I had this epiphany and realized this may be a children's song, but it is so much more. This is about the values that are enshrined in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. It's the ideals that people can self-govern if we do this responsibly and do it right. And it's like, wow, that just bowled me over. And one revelation from the first day I met him to the next time, every time I met Pete, I was getting a deeper and deeper understanding of the power behind folk music, the message. So for me, it was the message that changed my life.
Okay. I see you've got your guitar all tuned up there. How about a song there, Mr.?
Well, I do. And you know, I was just thinking the same exact thing. And what I was thinking was, so the 2 questions you asked was about, you know, Pete's influence on me and carrying the torch. One of the things about carrying the torch is to learn the old songs and to learn them the different ways they were sung by different people. Well, let's do a song that Pete Seeger wrote, except I'm going to do it the way that Pete wrote it, not the way that everybody knows it. We all know it from Peter, Paul, and Mary, and they did a wonderful rendition of it. But when I heard Pete's original version of this song that he wrote, If I Had a Hammer, almost like a gospel song, it really bowled me over. Here goes. If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out warning, I'd hammer out love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. I had a bell, I'd ring it in the morning, I'd ring it in the evening, all over this land. I'd ring out danger, I'd ring out warning, I'd ring out love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. song. I'd sing it in the morning, I'd sing it in the evening, all over this land. I'd sing out danger, I'd sing out a warning, I'd sing out love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. Well, I got a hammer, and I got a bell, and I got a song to sing all over this land. It's the hammer of justice, it's the bell of freedom, it's a song about love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. Well, you know, in the great folk music tradition, somebody wrote a new verse in the song. I give a lot of credit to anybody who thinks they can make this song any better. But you know who did was Peter Yarrow from Peter, Paul, and Mary. And he was wise enough to add only one word to that last verse. But I think that by doing so, he takes a song that was written 70 years ago and makes it as relevant today as it could ever be. He sings, I still got a hammer, I still got a bell, and by God, I still got a song to sing. But I still got a hammer, and I still got a bell, and I still got a song to sing all over this land. It's the hammer of justice, it's the bell of freedom, it's a song about love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land.
Hey, that's great.
Oh, bravo.
I had a question for both of you guys, actually, and that had to do with, you know, what made New Jersey, the folk scene in New Jersey, you know, special and unique. And I was curious what your answer might be to that.
Well,
I'll let Michael take that, Michael.
go ahead. All right.
No, you're the expert. You take that.
All right. Well, as you know, I wrote this book. A lot of work. New Jersey being one of the original colonies, we have a history that goes back to the 1600s. And back in the day, used to have people gather around taverns. And the tavern was a hub of the community. It's where people would receive guests. That's where you get your mail. That's where you'd vote. It's also where you'd go for entertainment, raising your glass and singing around to songs, usually a cappella. Although sometimes there'd be a fiddle player, not a guitar player, a fiddle player would be in the room. And these songs would be sung. And if you think about it, that's open mic on a Saturday. People would be singing. And this is how slowly but surely the grassroots of these traditions started. The Pine Barrens they're a sacred ground for New Jersey folklore and folk music. There were many heroes in New Jersey, folk music and instrumentalist heroes in the 17 and 1800s that people should know, and they would inspire them. But bringing it up to the 20th century, I like to point out that, yes, Cambridge, Massachusetts, Greenwich Village, New York City, San Francisco, big places, big centers for folk music and happenings and that sort of gathering of the intelligentsia. But New Jersey is on an equal standing with those places. And I'll tell you why. Because back in the early 1900s, Camden, New Jersey, believe it or not, was the high-tech hub of the United States. That's where all the electrical and electronic research was going on. And that was the best place to record your music, at the old Victor Studios. Well, there was a man named Ralph Peer who lived in East Orange. He went down south and had a very famous recording session, brought back with him the Carter family and also Jimmy Rogers, who's known as the father of folk music. Where did they perform their very first albums? Camden, New Jersey. Woody Guthrie, who's another legend and considered a father figure. He hitchhiked his way over to New York City in January 1940, performed a concert, and then hooked up with some people, got a contract, went down to record his very first commercial album, Dust Bowl Ballads. Where did he go? Camden, New Jersey. Paul Robeson, his first recordings, Camden, New Jersey. So we have a very strong historical and tradition here in New Jersey with regard to folk music. And maybe I'll turn it back to Spook. Maybe he can elaborate on that. And slowly but surely, we had various performances. We had various festivals. We had the Middletown Festival. We had the North Jersey Folk Music Society festivals, the famous June days. And then in 1975, we had the New Jersey Folk Festival. So Spook Handy was a big part of that. And I'll let him pick up on that tradition.
Well, I'll just say this about, my cousin, Michael Castellano, used to sing on the street corner of Broad Street and Market down in Newark with a fellow named Frankie Valli back in the late 1950s before the group got signed. And so, what we consider folk music is it's not just the violins and the banjos and the mandolins and stuff. It's like the street music that people play. And you still hear that. If you get into the right places, you hear that. It's kind of a neat thing. I was doing performing at the Smithsonian New Harmonies exhibit not too long ago, and I heard I went to a kiosk and I heard a gospel band from New Jersey, and unfortunately I don't remember their name, but they were singing the song that from the 1930s that was waist deep in the Jordan River. And I realized that Pete Seeger, the genius that he was, took that idea and brought it forward to his famous song Waist Deep in the Big Muddy, which he wrote in 1967 and was about the Vietnam War. It was totally contemporary.
So in that fool says to push on.
And the big fool says to push on. Yeah. I'll tell you what, I'll do a song because I want to also touch on this idea of the next thing we do after we learn the old songs is we take what we learned. We can write new lyrics to old melodies or new verses to old songs, or take the concepts and bring them a step further. And I had a song that came to me one day when I was running right in New Brunswick, New Jersey, about a mile from the New Jersey Folk Festival grounds. I was in Hellier Woods, and this song came to me, and I decided I was going to keep running until I had the song permanently indelled into my brain. And so I got home and I started playing the song, and I realized I had to do some research to make sure that it was factually correct, because it had biblical references. And as I was working on the making sure that the parts of it were correct, a new verse and a third verse came to me. And to me, this is what we can do as we look forward to the future of folk music. We just spent time talking about having our feet firmly planted in the past. How do we move it forward? Well, this song has the first verse is about Moses, who saw the light, and the three kings who saw the light. And the third verse is about the light that we people today can find in our own hearts. We don't have to go to Jerusalem or go anywhere else to find it. It's right here with us. It's a contemporary understanding that most religions didn't have until the last century. So an old sounding song with old ideas leading up to a new idea. It's called Lead Us Home to the Promised Land. Moses was guided by a pillar of light. He brought 2 stones to the Israelites. He told them God wasn't happy with the sin he saw, but he said, if we follow these 10 good laws, they will lead us home to the promised land. Lead us home to the promised land. Lead us home to the promised land. God wasn't happy with the sin he saw, but he said, If we follow these 10 good laws, they will lead us home to the promised land. 3 kings chasing down a star so bright, came upon a baby in a manger one night. He told them, keep those commandments you've been singing of, but do everything that you do with love. Lead us home to the promised land. Lead us home to the promised land. Lead us home. Lead us home to the promised land. Keep those commandments you've been singing of, but do everything that you do with love. Will lead us home to the promised land. People rushing around trying to find that star, but a small still voice says we don't have to look that far. It tells us heaven's not found on a map or a chart, but if we follow the light that shines in our hearts, it will lead us home to the promised land. Lead us home to the promised land. Won't you lead us home? Lead us home to the promised land. Lead us home. It's not found on the map or a chart, but if we follow the light that shines in our hearts, it will lead us home to the promised land. Lead us home to the promised land. Lead us home to the promised land. Won't you lead us home? Lead us home to the promised land. Lead us home. Lead us home to the promised land. Lead us home to the promised land.
Very nice. Very nice. Beautiful.
You know, Michael, I have to thank you for clapping because, you know, here we are. It's 2020. We have the virtual New Jersey Folk Festival because we can't meet in large groups because of the COVID-19 epidemic. And I've been doing these Facebook Live concerts, and you don't hear anybody. You don't see anybody. You're just looking at yourself in the camera, and it's amazing to hear, hey, somebody's there. It's fantastic.
Somebody's here. We're out there. We're out there.
Well, you know, the opportunity that we have right now, and this is another great, fantastic thing for the young folks who are involved with this festival, is, you know, Pete Seeger taught me, he said, if you want to learn about, write songs about the world we live in today. And I asked him, how do you know about the world we live in today? He said, talk to young people. Because we older folks, we figured it out a long time ago, but things have changed. And look what we've done anyway, right? So the young folks, I'm finding, you know, this idea of connecting with each other in different and new ways is just one of the many, many things that comes so much more naturally to them. So I'm so happy to be connected with the festival and young people like Matt and other folks who are young enough to know what the world is like that we live in today.
I hear young singer-songwriters today when I go out and listen to music at the New Jersey Folk Festival when they're performing. I think the current, the contemporary musicians today have lots to offer. They're very, very musically savvy. They're streetwise. They've got their own ideas. They're bringing new sounds into this folk genre, folk, acoustic, Americana, whatever you want to call it. They have their feet, yes, they respect the past, I think, but they also have their feet firmly planted in the contemporary traditions. Now, you're a guy who's been around. You've got some mileage under your fingers. You, in the circuits that you travel, you must come in contact with young people all the time. What's going on in the circuit today? What's happening in the scene? What gives you reason to be hopeful for the next generation? Because this music, like you say, it's a tradition that's carried on. So there's an aspect of stewardship involved. You inherited it from the people that inspired you. You have it now. Now it's your job to pass it on. So tell us about the stewardship for young people today.
Well, the neat thing is, so like I'm a member of the Folk Alliance International organization. It's mostly American. It might be more fair to say North American, but we're inviting people from all over the world to come to our annual conferences and our regional conferences. And it's pretty neat because there are so many young people coming to these conferences, and they are very interested in the old folks. I don't mean old as in 80, 90 years old, even if they are 80 or 90 years old. I mean the folks who have been around and learned the old traditional styles, like Andy Cohen and Guy Davis, and myself to a lesser degree, Rick Polari, who's from New Jersey and I think played at the very first New Jersey Folk
My
Festival.
buddy, Rick Polari.
Yeah, and he's in your book too.
He is.
And excellent book, by the way. And the young folks, so they do have this connection with one foot, or at least a couple of toes, firmly established in the past. But they're taking these instruments that, they're getting more and more obscure now, and they're learning to play old-timey, but they're adapting it to a totally new style. It's very contemporary and lively and energetic and rooted at the same time. It's mind-boggling. It's something that's happened really a lot more so in the last 10 years. Young folks who are amazingly good at their instruments, singing on pitch, playing on time, sounding good, tuning up properly, and knowing a lot of the root stuff that they're learning from the older folks, and being very innovative with new styles.
I was wondering if you've been listening to any young musicians who you'd recommend for people who are listening in right now, if they're looking for some other folks to tune into while we're all stuck at home. Who would you give a shout out to?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, gee whiz. I wish you had asked me this question earlier, because I'm the kind of guy, like, I couldn't remember my mother's name.
I got a few suggestions for you.
Yeah.
Some good friends of mine. One guy comes from my hometown, Mark Kiliansky and Amy Alve. They've been living the life. They've been on the road. They've been in Europe and Australia. They used to call themselves Hoot and Holler. Now they're called Golden Shoals. And they've just produced and about to release another new CD of original songs. So I would give a shout out to them. I'd give a shout out to my good friend in Nashville, Nina Ritchie. She's doing some interesting stuff. Melanie Bresnan, another singer-songwriter from Nashville. She was at the Folk Festival last year as a singer-songwriter on the Jersey Shore stage. So lots of good young people coming up and bringing all new sounds to this genre. So I give them a lot of credit. It's I tell people 50 years from now, they're going to look back on this time period. There've actually been many folk revivals over the years. I think we're in the middle of a folk revival right now when you consider all the cool stuff that's going on. Singer-songwriters producing themselves and taking charge of their own production and recording. I think there's a lot happening nowadays. So that's there's a couple ideas from me.
And I can think of a whole bunch too. But what's amazing is I'm so focused on the moment that I'm picturing these folks that I played on stage with and stuff like that, and just can't think of their names. I'm so sorry about that.
That's okay. I was wondering. I know, Matt, you've got some ideas too.
Yeah, we actually. This was actually our whole purpose for the new Shore stage, which is called New Directions in Folk, is that, as a music lover, I've seen, all these different new ways to approach the music, and breed like new blood into it. And, one of the musicians we were going to have is Knuth Kutz, and Christine, I'm blanking on her last name, but she plays the harp, and he does a spoken word type of rap poetry over it. And it's, really, the harp is a traditional Irish instrument that is found all through Celtic music and, Irish music today. And they kind of took that sound and, added something to it that's unique to, the group that where he grew up, which is in Philadelphia. And then there's another performer named Ian O'Neill, who was also supposed to be at the festival this year, who is more of a traditional, like has a little bit of Bruce Springsteen, Dylan kind of vibe. And, that's kind of what I really enjoy about all this kind of stuff. And it was, and that's how I got into folk, was listening to revivalists. And then I want to do my history on what they learned. And that's what brought me to liking traditional folk music as well. I think it's kind of weird that, and it's kind of good that while there's this huge debate between traditional and revivalist, one you may not discover without the other, and they're kind of together as one thing. And it's not, this whole debate is which is better. I think they're both amazing, and them working together is, why we have this new kind of approach to music today.
Yeah. I'm wondering if Spook Handy has one more song in his bag of tricks. I bet he does. I have a suspicion he does.
Well, I do. Thank you so much. And when Matt said the harp, I thought you meant this harp.
That harp. Yeah, that's what he was talking about. Yeah, that's right.
Well, okay. Well, I'll do one last song, and it's wonderful to keep the streak going. I played at the 1998 New Jersey Folk Festival, and then the 2001, and everyone since then. This is now keeping the string alive. My 20th consecutive, and my 21st overall.
Hey!
And I'm going to do
body of work.
I'm going to do this last song now. My sound might still fit into what you would call revival folk or traditional, not really traditional, but revival folk. But I'm hoping that my message is carrying things forward. So the first song I played today was "If I Had a Hammer" by Pete Seeger. That was written 70 years ago. And I have a new song that I wrote on the day after the 2016 election, which is, I think, 2016 was the most important year in the last 20 years, with the possible exception of this year. And I wrote this after the election, hope and putting out a message that, our liberties are probably going to be under attack. And but the freedom that we really have is really in our hearts. And if we all stick together and we use our voices to sing that song of love between all of our brothers and all of our sisters, regardless of the color of their skin or the shape of their eyes or the language that they speak or who they love or even how they identify, we will survive and thrive as long as we always have a song to sing. If you could break the hammer of justice, divide democracy, gag the press, make arrests, I would still be free. Cause the bell of freedom in my heart will always have a place to ring. It will always, always, always have a song to sing. Always, always, always have a song to sing. Always, always, always have a song to sing. The bell of freedom in my heart will always have a place to ring. And will always, always, always have a song to sing. Now, some may fight among us, ask who here is to blame. Some will cry and wonder why, but let's not play that game. There's There's a voice inside of each of us. Can you hear it? Call our names and say it. We'll always, always, always have a song to sing. Always, always, always have a song to sing. Always, always, always have a song to sing. You know the bell of freedom in my heart will always have a place to ring. And we'll always, always, always have a song to sing. In this darkest hour, there is no time to hide. So let's stoke our inner fires and keep the flame alive. If we raise our voices up as one, we will not be denied. And we will always, always, always have a song to sing. Always, always, always have a song to sing. Always, always, always have a song to sing. The bell of freedom in my heart will always have a place to ring. And we'll always, always, always have a song to sing. Yes, we'll always, always, always have a song to sing.
Bravo, bravo.
Thank you. All right. We will always have a song to sing. The New Jersey Folk Festival is a big part of keeping that alive and keeping the song relevant to the world we live in today, because we're always having people reaching back to grab onto the roots and reaching forward to bring the music into the future and keep it relevant and contemporary. And I'm honored to be associated with this festival.
Well said.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's really wonderful, the musical virtual gatherings we've been doing just bring out how much creativity there is to work with, even when we're all sort of stuck at home. And I wondered if, like, as a sort of parting little conversational item we might have is just, you know, how is music helping you get through the isolation and the lockdown, and has it affected your musical? Have you been writing any songs or inspiration flowing on that front?
I have something very frightening and scary to share with you folks. You know, a good percentage of my songs come in my dreams. And 3 nights ago, I woke up with an opera in my head. And I'm, I heard the whole entire orchestration with the strings and the cello, and I was wondering if I'm going batty.
Newsflash, this just in. Spook Andy is becoming a classical musician.
Oh my goodness.
Tune in later for details.
No, but I'll tell you what, when this first happened, it's like, it's the only thing you're thinking about is the virus, the pandemic, the political aspect of it, the health aspect of it. And one day I went and put on the radio and I put on a rock station and I heard a song I never heard before. Turns out it was by The Who, and it was something I never heard before. And it just felt so comforting to have something that was rooted in, believe it or not, a time when things were much, much more sane than they are now.
Well, I really appreciate all of you coming together to do this salute to the New Jersey folk scene. And it's great to have you, Michael, to talk from all of the research you've done on your book. It's great to have you singing and playing with us, Spook, and Matt. you know, we work together on programming the Shore Stage. You do the artistic direction for the Shore Stage and have you've got the pulse of the folk scene here and all sort of up and down the East Coast. So I'm really pleased to be able to bring you all together for this New Jersey Folk Festival virtual.
I got a shout out for Matt Houston and his many years of dedication and service to the Folk Festival. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. You guys are New Jersey Folk Festival is the future, and I thank you folks for having the wisdom to discover this tool and to come up with the idea to do this. Fantastic idea.
All right. Well, with that, I think, well, I'll have everybody give a wave goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Peace, Daddy-O.
And
Have a good one.
I'm going to give us a little send-off. Just thanking everybody at the New Jersey Folk Festival, thanking our board, thanking the American Studies Department at Rutgers University, where the Folk Festival lives. And in particular, for this artist encounter, we thank the Middlesex County Office of Arts and History, from whom we have a grant to help pay artists who are doing these sessions with us. So thank you very much. We'll have another great day. Thanks, guys.